our numbers are ticking up. Anne, welcome.
Hi, Ann.
And I haven't seen yet who the other name is. I might have missed it when it popped up, but welcome. Yeah, this is the first time I had the presence of mind to say, let's get on 5 minutes early. And that helps with the starting on time. So, yeah. Unfortunately,
I've also found that I'm also someone who, and I think it may just be the nature of the industry and working. If you're not 5 minutes early to something, and that may also be maybe part of some of my daddy issues. That as a 54-year-old man, I have no problem admitting to daddy.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, everybody's got to have a few at least. My dad is a child psychiatrist, and I assure you, I have daddy issues. So, love you, Dad, if you're watching. Oh, I am so grateful to you for being here with me today, Sam, and for your willingness. I think it's so special, like that you're just like, yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's see where it goes. We don't need a script, and I'm really thrilled about that. You are welcome to ask me questions at any point. I always feel like I want to make things easier for the other person because some people feel more comfortable if they don't have to steer things, but I also don't want you to feel steered. So at any point, feel free to throw questions back at me and or redirect or whatever else. But I would really love to hear, because I don't know this, what your path into poetry was like. I'd love to know that story.
Path into poetry began. I'm having a hard time really pinpointing this. I think back in 2017, 2018. No, it had to be. I'm guessing in the 2016.
Okay.
I started writing, and I wanted to write a novel. I started writing a novel that was, it was a story about my life, but fictional in a way, fictional character, but there were going to be a lot of what I talked about. Like the present day character was fictional, but the childhood was not.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I
Okay.
started writing it, and I got up to about chapter 8. I didn't know where to go. Now, mind you, I have no literary background. My writing has purely been business writing.
Mm.
And so I know how to write technical specifications. I know how to write, very wordy, lawyer-like letters when I need to.
Oh, charming. Should do a whole novel of those.
Yeah, and so I don't have a literary background, but I started it, and I felt like it was obviously too overwhelming. And I put it aside. But in the meantime, I would just write poetry here and there. It started off as love poetry,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I quickly got tired of it. So, and maybe we'll get into it. But it started off with love poetry, and then um, uh, I started digging a little deeper to questioning of everything. And then right before the pandemic, I get over and my life revolved around three major topics: faith, family, and work.
Mm.
And faith, I grew up in the church. I remember, I was 9 years old, and let me go a little further back. My dad was a very restless man, and I was born in Italy. Left Italy when I was 2. We moved to Australia. His original goal was to come to the US. But back then they had quotas. I think they still have quotas for country. But apparently there were too many Italians in the country back in 1973, which is offensive because I don't think you can have enough Italians anywhere. But there were too many Italians in the country, and Australia was going through a major construction boom. My dad was in construction, and so we moved to Australia, and we lived there for 6 years in Sydney, in Leichhardt, which is a suburb. And back then it was really it was like Little Italy of Sydney. And after 6 years, when I was 8, we moved. We finally got the opportunity to move to the U.S., which is an interesting story that I found out after my dad passed away. And I can go to so many tangents. I don't stay focused. We moved to the U.S. I was 8 years old, and my dad at some point uh, received a vision
Mm.
and was told to go back to Italy as a missionary. So at the time, we were 4 kids, 4 boys, 2 years apart. I was about 8.5 at the time. My younger brother was 2 years younger than my two older brothers, 2 years older.
Yeah.
And he went from the oldest to the youngest. What instrument do you want to play? Bass, guitar. Then I chose the drums, and my brother was stuck with the piano. Going back, I wish I had picked the piano. It's another story. Um, and so by 9 years old, I was playing drums in church.
Mm.
And so that became just a part of my life. And I went from playing in church bands to becoming part of church leadership. And by the late 2000 teens, I was a board member and music director. This is all while still having a full-time career. And I just, what was interesting my faith growing up, what faith meant to me back then was you don't question the just believe.
Mm. Mm.
And so I put my head down, and there some of my writing speaks to that. Some of them may not necessarily be on Substack just yet, but I am working on a collection that touches on that.
Yeah.
But it was no, you believe. There's no questioning. And so I put my head down and believed. And then I believed as long as I could until my late 40s is when I hit the wall, and I have to back away from it.
Yeah.
It coincided. So that was my faith. My faith fractured. So that one pillar was gone. And then along with that, I got a divorce after 26 years.
Mm.
And so to a certain degree, the family pillar fractured.
Mhm.
But then I was
Yeah.
left. Work was everything. I mean, it gave me meaning, it gave me purpose. Then all of a sudden, I started questioning what I'm doing for work. So all of a sudden, my 3 pillars in life just broke apart. And during the same time, I really started getting into
Mm.
I started reading, actually now reading poetry. I started writing. During a pandemic, I started taking online courses. I remember taking a course with Sam Sachs, which was a just an eye opener because I was I was in over my head at the time. These were published poets in this class, and it was supposed to be from intermediate poets. And I found out that, yeah, no, I'm very beginner still. But then it was very challenging. It was very humbling, but it really helped me focus on my craft. And from there, it just started taking off. And because of my background in project management, um, treated my poetry work with the same zeal
Mm.
and same urgency, because now it's like my work isn't really giving me the satisfaction I wanted, but now writing wants. So I applied that what I was used to doing which, come on, let's do it. Let's keep going. You wrote a poem? Great. Go to the next one. Oh, you have a handful of poems. Let's write a book.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm at the point where, Sam, you need to back off a little.
Sam,
Poetry is
chill.
about, well, being slow and living life and stopping and noticing, observing. And so I've decided, okay, I need to back
Yeah.
away.
And so
Um,
many of your poems have that kind of energy to them, that sort of invitation to slowness and to presence.
yeah, and a lot of those observations happen from my deck.
Mhm. Mhm.
I am an early riser. Have always been. No matter if it's the weekday or weekend, I'm up at 5.
Yeah.
And if it's a work day, I get up. I get ready, grab my coffee, and I'm open to it. I don't
Yeah.
linger. Weekends, oh, I will drink coffee for the first 2 or 3 hours, listen to music, read, write, meditate, and observe. I love it when it's that part of the morning right before, like we're at that middle point between darkness and
Yeah.
sitting out on the couch. Start to, it's not only a matter of seeing things and waking, it's hearing as well.
Mhm.
It's almost like it's like life beginning and being when it's plenty of poetry up and
Yeah.
speaks. Um,
There's something about that time of day too, I know for me, where it's like I'm awake in the sense of alert and observant, but my brain isn't loud yet. The engine of my mind has not yet revved up. And so there's that sort of threshold between the like dark, unconscious, subconscious of night and the like fully awake and bustling around of midday. There's that lovely threshold space that
yeah,
invites something different.
no, and it's that moment that it's before I've opened up a single email.
Mm.
It's
Mhm.
before I've received the phone call, because, I work in the design and construction industry, and right now I'm in real estate development, and I could be getting calls at 6 in the morning, up until the evening. But on the weekend, things are usually quiet. So it's before any of that has happened. So my mind is just really in a state of calm, other than the cat, or whatever she wants. I have to cater to him. Other than that, it is me time. It's that moment where I can just take a step back from everything that's happened, and it's when I am most creative in those moments.
Mhm.
And the other time I'm also very creative. Not always convenient is what I'm driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause
What do you
I
think it is
will
about driving? What's the magic there?
I could
Your
be
voice
stuck.
just cut out
Oh, can you hear me?
for a second. Oh, no. Mm. Yeah, now I
Um,
can. It might have been my connection.
yeah, I think you froze a little bit. Um, it could be the movements. It could be the fact that, that there's nothing I can do as
Yeah.
far as whether there's traffic or, um, all I know is I need to get from point A to point B.
Mhm.
I always give myself enough time so I'm not rushed.
Yeah.
And so I think that in between moment between points A and B, um,
Mhm.
I think my mind just goes into a place where I'm observing everything.
It's
Um,
interesting to think about that between state as being like the movement, but also the betweenness. For me, walking is very much that way. Driving can be, but walking is very much. And when I talked to XP Callahan on a live a while back, she was saying biking is that space for her. Which so it's interesting that that pattern of like moving between point A and point B being this sort of portal space of some sort.
I would fall off the bike if that were the case.
Have an epiphany, hit a tree. Yeah.
Also, I also, when I drive, listen to a lot of music. Music is, I don't know what it is. I don't play a lot anymore. Ever since I took a step back from church. But for me, listening to music is almost for the religious experience.
Yeah.
Um, and there's so much material and inspiration that comes out of them, at least for me.
Yeah.
And then I also listen to audiobooks.
Is there a
Um,
kind of music you favor in terms of, tr things that sort of spark creative inspiration for you?
for me, my go-to is folk singer-songwriter.
Mhm.
So like even at work, my Spotify, if I'm not in a meeting
Yeah.
or if someone's not in my office, the music is playing on Spotify. And I call it my mountain mix.
Mm.
It's a mix I created for when I went out west last fall. And
Mhm.
you got people like Will Varley, David Ramirez, Hoven, Charlie Bishop, who's someone that I recently came across, Jeffrey Martin, someone who I'm really beginning to love, Wild Horses, um, and the tallest man on the earth. And I think my favorite is Gregory Alan Isaac.
You've given me some people to go look up
Oh,
after we get off.
absolutely. Yeah. If you have Spotify, I
Yeah,
don't mind making them the playlist public.
that would be fun. I would love that. Yeah, I mean, you probably have a bunch of people here now who are gonna want your playlist. Like, if I listen to this, I'll write poems like Sam. That
Yeah.
must be the that must be how that works.
So yeah, so I got into poetry. Now poetry is has taken over that emptiness.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is even just hearing myself say that and coming from a religious background, not just religious, it was really a foundational uh, faith experience for me. That just for me, that I'm just in another place right now. But just hearing myself say that poetry has filled that hole to me is almost anathema. It's like I don't
Mm.
know if I should be saying that. I hope my old pastor isn't hearing me. But it's just a reality that writing right now is what gives me purpose. And
Mhm.
so I have been working on a collection of poetry, which is sort of a continuation to my first book, On the Edge of Knowing.
Yeah.
On my Edge of Knowing is more of I hit the wall and
Mhm.
my eyes have opened. So I'm just seeing a lot of stuff and I'm trying to really understand it. This next collection that I'm working on, it's been really challenging because a lot of and I'll read one to give you a
Love that.
flavor, um, because it's questioning what I'm doing now.
Mm. Mhm. Well, and I was just gonna ask you where you find yourself on the edge of knowing right now, and so that sounds like the beginning of an answer to that. Mm.
Yeah, and I'm someone who uh, I I had humble beginnings when it comes to work and my career. Um, I never finished high school. Um, when I came to this country, I was working to the US. I was working manual construction, just manual labor, no benefits. So if you get cut bad, you're duct taping that finger back together. You got to finish the day because you don't want anything to go bad. And then you go home and you're like, okay, is this bad enough to go to the emergency? So I did that for many years, and then I wanted to get my builder's license. I was looking up courses to get my builder's license, And when I looked at the local the technical institute, one of technical institute of technology, who's offering builders license courses, they also had architecture.
Mm.
And I know how to draw, um, and I had this construction background. Maybe architecture would be a good fit for me to get me out of the field and into an office. Because at that point, I was starting a family, thinking about starting a family and having benefits would be really good for that.
Yeah.
And so I started to go to school. I had to get my GED,
Mhm.
and my GED only allowed me to go to evening classes. And thankfully, Wentworth had an evening program. Eventually graduated and worked in architecture for a while, then construction management, now real estate development. But for me at this point, like this is the first time I've been able to tell myself, Sam, you can actually retire at 65 and be comfortable.
Yeah.
But now I'm at a point where I'm like, do I do I want to go for another 10 years? I don't know. I'm wrestling with a lot of that. But one of the poems that really kick off the this collection is titled "Today I am in no mood to write."
Mm. Do you wanna read that one?
Yeah, I'm gonna read it.
Great, I'd love to hear it.
I'm still coming down from the week. The blinking cursor that followed me home, meetings that multiplied like flies, the long red river of brake lights leading nowhere I wanted to be. My mind hums like a server room that never goes dark. Yes, I made the deadline. Slid in sideways, breath burning, heart kicking at my ribs like it wanted out. Once, this would have been glory. I would have called it drive, ambition, proof I mattered. Now it feels like I handed over something unnamed and signed no receipt. Some part of me buckled quietly under the weight of just this one more push, and I can't find where it fell. Outside, birds gather at the feeder, feathers puffed against the cold. Snow lowers itself without hurry, soft as forgiveness. The world keeps happening beautifully, and I am not in it. Their songs reach the window and stop. Will I ever feel the old victory again? That electric surge of surviving myself? Or have I outgrown the lie that almost breaking is the same as living? There's no time to sit with the question. Another deadline is already stretching awake. It knows my name.
Mm, that's wonderful and so relatable. Probably for
Yeah.
absolutely everybody listening.
No, it's one of those things where back in the day, you went from one deadline to another deadline, and in my industry, one project to another. And sometimes you're overlapping one project finishing and the project starting, and you just never had time to think, never had time to wonder, wait, what just happened? How did I get here? What the hell am I doing? And used to go, we'd all go to the bar, you'd celebrate, have a few drinks together, team victory, claim the victory. And then you'd wake up the next day and do it all over again.
Yeah.
This time was different. And I let one of our in-house counsel attorneys who's been following my poetry. We were talking about that, and she goes, "Can I read the poems?" I mentioned the poem to her. She goes, "Can I read the poems?" And sure. Um, and I felt slightly uncomfortable because I'm exposing a part of me in the business world
Yeah.
that I don't know how see. And she read in about a little emotion. She goes, "Can I share this with some of my lawyer friends?"
Mm.
I said, "Sure." Um, so that's what I'm wrestling. And it's interesting because after I wrote that poem, I started thinking, well, and that's where we were talking about questions, just
Yeah. Yeah.
things just being resolved, and that's okay. Being things being unresolved, and just letting yourself immersing yourself in that moment and seeing what comes out of it. And I started wondering, why am I doing this? I could find another job. Yeah, well, I would have to change my life, sure. But why am I doing this? And I'll read another poem because I think it will explain it a little better
Yeah.
than
I'm
this.
struck too by thinking about what you said about as a child in the church having to sort of accept that you don't question. Faith is that you never question. And I think that's so baked into the way we think about work and productivity in our culture as well. There are things you don't question. So just that question of why am I doing this? You're already breaking out of that just by asking the question. You don't need to find the answer to have succeeded at breaking out. Asking a question is already a
Like
shift.
my eldest child, who's 29, who's um, I make fun. We joke around about he's like borderline communist, but not communist in that way, but anti-establishment, and so we've joked around over the years, and he's starting to say, "Dad, is everything okay? You seem to be thinking differently because she's starting to sound sort of anti-establishment." I'm like, "Oh, something's happening." But this next poem is called "Why I Keep Pressing."
Mm.
Because I'm afraid I won't leave anything of value, that my children will sift through the debris of me, scattered like plaster and brick my father left behind. And instead of finding a life built well, they'll taste the bitterness of ashes. Maybe that's why I keep tracing blueprints that never settle, past foundations groaning under their own weight, past walls half framed, nails bent, wood sighing, because somewhere inside I hear the money changers clanging, it's not enough. I wonder if it will ever be enough. Enough currency, enough time, enough proof that this was worth the cost. And it frightens me to think that after all this, decades of trading their childhoods for work that swallowed me, my mind warmed to a dull edge, bones gone heavy. It could have been for nothing. That I will have spent my life chasing a shadow, only to leave them in the shape of my feet.
Mm.
And that's sort of something clicked. And, my father, when he passed away, left a mess, financial ruin. And thankfully, my brothers and I were in a place to take care of it, and take care of my mom doing time.
Yeah.
But I keep on going back to
Mm.
inheritance.
Yeah. I'm curious with that poem because it's really a poem that's all like the whole poem is sort of like living into a question, right? You're living into this question. I'm curious about your process, and maybe it varies from poem to poem, but whether you've done all this living into the question, you've felt all these things, you've had all these thoughts, and now you go write the poem, or to what extent the act of writing the poem drops you into the question and you find yourself experiencing it differently than you would without the vehicle of the poem or the vehicle of writing the poem, the process itself.
I think it varies.
Yeah.
For this poem, I had the title,
Mhm.
"Why I Keep Pressing," and as I started thinking, and let's call it meditating,
Yeah.
uh, my thoughts went to my father, and so I was able to connect that. And then from there, it's okay. I'm afraid of, well, you know, maybe not leaving ruin, but not leaving enough for my kids.
Mm.
And it's interesting. I'll get back. And so then it went to that point, and because again, the past several years, I've really been thinking uh, deeply about retirement. About granted, I'm 10 years away from it, but I'm already starting to think about uh,
Yeah.
what do I need to do? Where do I need to? How far do I need to? What do I need to cut with? And so I think because my mind has been there, the poem. I start writing the poem. It starts off with the title, why I keep pressing, and it starts. I think it starts to just meander. I'm trying to connect dots,
Yeah.
and I don't have an answer to this.
Mhm.
Maybe it, it it will be all worth it one day. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
or maybe I need to make some adjustments. I'm not sure. My younger son, um, Sergio, one day, so I was talking to him and my daughter-in-law. We were just talking about this. And my son goes, "Dad, I don't think you have to worry. It's not your responsibility to take care of this." And there's a part of me that says, "Yeah, you're right. It isn't my responsibility to take care of you." But there's that other part that says, "But I want to."
Of course. Yeah.
Then how do you balance things between,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have to, but I want to? Where's that happy medium?
Mm. Yeah. Well, no, that question too, just something I've been thinking about with questions lately is, and maybe not every question is this way. Sometimes you do just need to answer the question like, "Oh, how much do I owe on taxes?" You have to come, you don't get to live into that question for eternity, 'cause it wouldn't be a fun question to live into for eternity either. But some questions, just the fact of sitting in them, sitting with them, even if the thing that emerges isn't an answer, that means you never have to ask the question again. It's like the question angles you toward experience in a different way. The question is a posture eh, toward your life or toward the actions you're taking. The fact that you're questioning curves you in some new way so that you might look back years later and realize you were kind of living into an answer. Living into the question is living into the answer, right? Even if it's not going to be tidy and resolved and finished. And um, I've been trying to just soften into that more and more and not view answers as the goals. Like I'm trying to think of them more like park benches. You find an answer or a sense of certainty and you sit on it for a minute and then you get up, but go back to your journey of questioning. Like, yeah, we all need to take a break and have a sense of certainty that might be kind of false and overinflated. And then we gather our energy and we get back out into the questions.
Yeah, I love the life of believing I had everything figured out. To yeah, no, I don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
In fact, there are days when I'm writing that I'm like, are you a child? Are you just? I just sometimes some days I feel like a child that's just been thrown into this world, and I'm seeing things different.
Mhm.
And whereas I used to be able to say, yeah, no, no, that's blue.
Mm.
Whereas now I'm like, I don't know if it's blue. Does it need to be blue? Why does it have to be blue? It could be anything. It doesn't know what really matters. And it goes back to the cliche, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Mhm.
And this is truth. Yeah, we all like to get to a place in the end. But you can't let that stop you from living your day um, beautifully as it as um, you know, aware as you possibly can be. There are days where you just have to stop worrying about where you go and
Mhm.
just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if there's a detour, don't be afraid to take it. It's the worst that can
How
happen.
like, thinking about, for anybody who might be experiencing a moment where a pillar in your life is knocked down, something you were certain of has fractured, or, you're on a detour. Maybe you still have a sense you're gonna get where you need to go, but you're on a detour and it's not fun and it's it's hard and you don't know how long it's gonna take. I'm curious, what you would say about how creativity or writing or poetry could be a friend or, ally in those kinds of moments or situations.
It's an interesting question because whereas poetry will immerse me deeper into those feelings,
Yeah.
I almost feel like the creativity through writing is almost therapeutic in a way similar to if you were talking to a therapist.
Mhm.
You're really talking to yourself.
Yeah.
And you may, and again, if you're a poet, you're also a reader. You're reading other poetry, and I think there's therapy in that as well. But if you're writing and you're really getting deep into, for me, poetry is about uh, again that being that pillar, but it's also um, giving getting me to a point where I can say I feel like I belong here in this
Yeah.
space.
Mm.
And so for me, writing and in particular poetry, I immerse myself in deep
Yeah.
and deeper into the questions, deeper into the uncertainty, because sometimes was it oh, I'm gonna nerd out on Lord of the Rings. I forget who it was. One of the hobbits said something about sometimes it might have been Samwise Gamgee. Uh, the fastest way out is I forget the saying, but sometimes you just have to go deeper
Yeah.
to find the exit. I find poetry is
Yeah. As I'm seeing
sometimes the way out.
I'm seeing Anne's comment right now. I think it's probably been there for a while and my brain just didn't process it. But she says, beautiful how you let your poetry help you circle around the questions. And I love that. I mean, circle around them. And I think also there can really be a spiraling into them, right? Which is, it sounds like what you're talking about a little bit right now. Like it, it might not be a straight line, but it doesn't need to be.
And just a sense of calm. I started doing paint by numbers.
Mm,
Like if I'm not feeling inspired to write, if don't want to read, then I in my office I have an easel with the latest paint by number, and I just sit there. And sometimes I'll do 5 minutes, sometimes I'll do a half hour. But that's something where it allows it's difficult paint by numbers, but it's simple enough where I have this painting. I think maybe I have this painting. I have this number. This number is coded to this particular color, and I need
yeah.
to put that color in that slot. And I think what that does, because sometimes with poetry, there's no way.
Mm, hmm.
You
Yeah.
circle, the circling around the question, and sometimes there's no resolution. And something I'm gonna speak to a bit tomorrow with Jensen in that group is endings. It's because sometimes you write the poem and there's no resolution. Um, and so sometimes you're still left with this. Okay, I got it out of my system, but it's still not tied up in a bow, and I've resisted wrapping my poetry up in a nice neat bow. The painting by numbers helps satisfy that part of my brain
Yeah.
that needs to complete.
And that makes so much sense. Like, as much as poetry is wonderful and magical, it's probably not going to be everything a person needs. We do need food as well. You might need to move your body and you might need something that's linear and that's tidy and that's a little more black and white and that you can say, check, I did it. It's done. I got it right.
Yeah.
If that's what you're looking for, poetry is probably not going to give you that. So,
No, no. It's like for me, cleaning the kitchen before I go to bed.
yeah. Yeah.
It gives me okay. I feel like okay now I can know when it, the day is
Yeah.
done. There's nothing else to do.
You mentioned belonging. What's the connection between creativity and belonging for you?
It's too long. Having gone through what I've been through with the fracturing of the three pillars, I lost my sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And and I through my writing, through the exploration of self, through the awakening in nature, because I went about my day not paying attention to anything other than what I had to accomplish. So I was blind to everything else. And so when that all when everything just became so uncertain, when uncertainty crept into my life, I got a sense that I didn't belong. And to this day, I feel like it's weird. I have this feeling that I also don't belong here at work.
Mm.
Just weird. I love my job. I love where I work, but there's a part of me that, and maybe that's I just need to dig deeper into that. I feel like I don't truly belong. But when I'm touching the bark, forest fading, when I'm
Yeah.
touching the bark of the northern white pine in my backyard, I feel like I belong. I'm refilling the damn bird feeder for the fifth time this week. And watching the birds waiting for me to fill the feeder, and I feel like I belong there. You know, when I'm out, harvesting the asparagus, or pretty soon, I've these huge blueberry shows when I'm harvesting the blueberries in the backyard. Like, I feel like I belong. So for me, I lost my belonging in what I thought was so sure. And for me, I found that belonging in the thinking nature.
Mm.
Not to the point where it's um, replaced certain things,
Yeah.
but it's almost like spiritual. Call it a revival.
Yeah.
I had a revival, and I had it in nature, and that's what really got me grounded again.
Mhm.
And actually, my collection on the edge of knowing, there's a poem in there. I won't be able to recite it by memory, but it's called "The Song of Belonging." Talks about the sycamore tree, the tendon, and the roots, and my feet just wanted to really sink deep into the earth and to become part of it, and to just remember where I came from. Um, Actually, I do have in this new collection. Let me read another poem.
Oh, I love that.
This one's called "Let Me Return." Um, and it goes like this. I've raised walls that scrape the sky, bent my days to angles and load buried truths, to the grammar of steel, the arithmetic of weights. I've lived inside conference rooms, inside the endless asking, more height, more strength, more yield, until even my dreams were girded with beams and braced against collapse. I'm tired, tired of the straight line, of the clock's relentless jaw, of systems that feed on themselves and call it progress. Tired of building what will never rest, what will never kneel to wind, will soften in rain. Let me return to the earth, barefoot on rich, damp loam, where dark remembers rain, and roots speak in slow, patient tongues. I want to feel her hidden rivers pulse beneath my heels, her ancient heartbeat rise to bone and blood, a current that does not demand. Let me become birdsong, the small, fierce body of a wren spilling its bright defiance into the morning, a voice larger than its bones, or the long, aching call of the wolf, braiding dust to distance, or the low, rumbling shriek of the bear moving through shadow and roots. Let me be sand, turning upstream against the cold insistence, driven by something I do not question. Let me spend my life in that wild passage, give my body back to river, to claw, to soil, and be taken wholly into the great exchange.
It's beautiful. I both in the poem and in the things you were listing before where you feel belonging, filling the bird feeder, harvesting the blueberries. It's just struck by like the softness and slowness of those activities. And as you read that poem, I'm just hearing that softness and that slowness and that presence and that sense of belonging, like that you want to sink back into the earth and that you feel that belonging there. And I'm thinking about that contrast to most workplaces, even if you love your job. And in work, in our world, it's all about achievement and proving something and accomplishing something and doing. And that's not soft and it's not slow. And it's interesting to think that for all the striving we do and all the buying and acquiring to try to fit in, to try to belong, like maybe we just have to relax into it. Like maybe that's our innate state and everything else is static that prevents us from sensing that. But it's the slowness and the softness that invite us back in. And your poem really has that energy of absolute belonging, of fundamental belonging.
Yeah, and there's that line in there that speaks to because we build buildings, um, and part of investments, that it's I work for an institute, so that it's all part of managing the endowment, but there's a part of it that you know tired of building what will never last,
Mhm.
never stop in business. The moment you stop, the moment you slow down, someone will overtake you.
Mm.
Someone will either take your place or another business will come and take the work away from you. And so there's this need to always be pressing. And in order to do that successfully, oftentimes you have to bury the tenderness.
Mm.
And because a lot of it is pushing through. I don't want to do this, but I have to. And it's going to take a lot out of me. But I need to push forward. And so you feel like you have to get rid of that, let go of that tenderness. There's this, I don't know, this belief or this sense that um, being soft equates to not being as strong, or
Mm.
being tender doesn't equate to strength. And I can't answer that. I'm sure there's some of the tenderness that all equates to strength. But for me, um, uh, I had buried that side of me. I mean, I grew up in flames and fire.
Yeah.
Uh, And so I grew up always like in this hard shell. And whatever tenderness I did have, yeah, I had to keep it at a very time. So it really never got a chance to come out
Mhm.
the way I wanted it to. And in during this period of awakening or revival, um, that tenderness is
Mhm.
find myself just I used to be such a hardliner on so many things, and now it's not. Who am I to judge? As long as we're all happy, it doesn't really matter. And I find myself saying that more and more, and it's for me. I feel like I'm headed in. I don't want to say the right direction, but I'm headed in the direction where I feel comfortable.
Yeah. Well, and maybe there's no, absolute right direction for everybody or even for every moment of your life, but if you're following, like, what's pulling the deepest part of you, then I'm sure it is your right direction for this moment, even if it's gonna go as that kind of stuff sometimes does. Um,
One one thing that I have um, realized is the more I write, the deeper I get into the writing, the less I want to be visible, meaning the
mm,
less I want to be out there along with other people.
yeah,
I've always been an outgoing person. And I find myself like gravitating towards, yeah, no, I don't want to hang out with anyone today. I'm good at home, you know.
yeah,
And again, I don't know if that's right or wrong. I don't know if that's good or bad. I think there's a season for everything. You know, maybe this is
yeah,
my season of just you know, um, um, hiding myself from time to time. But there's also a sense of just have to be careful. You don't want to get lost.
yeah. Well, and
You don't
that's
want.
where that question is so valuable. So, if you were to just say, the right thing for me is to stay home and write and not be with people, and then you just settle that issue in your head, then you don't sense when it's time to do something different. But if you stay in that question, then my suspicion is you'll know. You'll know when you need to go do something out of your house
Yes.
and take a break. Yeah. I'm thinking about what you said about tenderness and strength, and it makes me think back to, you know, what you shared about these pillars in your life and them fracturing. And Um, I think a lot about the fact that when something hard, any kind of hard thing happens to us, there's this sort of choice between breaking down or breaking open. And for me, I guess what I mean by that is a breakdown would be like collapse in on yourself. And then when you can gather yourself back up, you try to make yourself brittle and strong so it can never happen again. And then breaking open is more like letting the experience in, letting yourself stay there on the ground and learn whatever you need to learn, and then going back out more open than you began, with your heart more open, your heart um, open to the ways that others are suffering, open to the next lesson that's going to come along, open to the beauty of the northern white pine in your yard and the feeling of its bark, open to all of that. And um, I think that is a space that's both tender and strong, that breaking open. And my sense is that that's what you did. um, and you broke open and poetry came in.
Now, and I also, as you were talking about the breakdown, and a lot of my, um, especially in this collection, there's a lot of construction analogies. There's also poetry that I wrote in the format of technical specifications,
Oh, cool.
which I've been experimenting with. But um, one thing, like for me, is I used to be someone who, if something broke, just discard it.
Mhm.
I don't have
Yeah.
time to keep
Right.
working. I don't understand. I don't understand. So it must not be for me.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm trying to learn to, rather than walking away from the rubble, spend some time walking through, sift through the rubble.
Yeah.
See what, because you never know. You're picking up a brick, and you just don't know what you're going to uncover in lifting up that brick. It may be something that you've always had that you just never saw because it was covered up by it.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to learn to just stay there for a bit, sort through the rubble. There's got to be something of value that you could, whether it's a lesson, um, whether it's something that it's never realized, whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, I think we we sometimes struggle with facing adversity, and facing adversity is, I mean, putting on this armor and getting my sword and my shield, and I'm going out there to battle. No, facing adversity is, damn, this building collapsed, and I'm gonna, whether I can rebuild it or whether I'm gonna take what I can from it and find somewhere else whatever it may be, just take time. And I'm also learning. I, I pride myself in making some very quick gut related decisions. It's like, why did you make that decision? I don't know. It just felt right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to step back and say, let me sit with this for a while. Well,
Mm.
it's so difficult.
It
Very
can be
difficult.
really hard. Yeah, when you have a strong impulse one way. I'm impulsive. I go with my gut, and I usually do it pretty fast. I'm just thinking about that image of sitting in the rubble, and you never know what you'll find. And then I'm thinking too that even just the sitting in the rubble, whether or not you find something, just the being willing to do that, not in a woe is me, wallow, wallow way necessarily, but just in a, huh, what's it like to sit here kind of way. I mean, that grows us. That prepares us for the next thing, whether the next thing is joyful and wonderful or challenging. That capacity to feel a wider range of your own life and that capacity to maybe bring curiosity and compassion to a wider range of your own feelings. There's this line from Rilke that I repeat to myself often. It's just, what's it like? Such intensity of pain. And I'll just like sub in whatever thing, like if I'm finding myself really annoyed, what's it like? Such intensity of annoyance. And I try to actually feel like, oh, what is it like to be so annoyed? Or what's it like to be in so much physical pain? Or what's it like to feel such heartache? And it's fascinating to me, no matter what the feeling is, if I turn myself into like just trying to, what is it like to feel this? I always land in the question of like, huh, what do I hate about this so much? Like, and I'm sort of baffled by why I hate pain so much. Once I actually just like let myself feel, it's like, it's intense. It's not pleasant. But even 8 out of 10 nerve pain isn't the end of the world. Like, it's just still just a feeling. Um, so I love that image of sitting in the rubble, whatever the rubble is in a person's life, not as a place you have to stay forever, but as a place that maybe we don't have to sprint away from.
Well, and I think it's also being honest with why the building collapsed, and something that I thought they needed um, to be honest with myself, especially with divorce. It's like, yeah, no, but this is my bad. And that's the one thing that people would be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm this. Oh, I'm that." And I'm like, "Look, I I I know what happened. Made a mistake. Hopefully, it never happens again." Um, but it's not running away from it. It's
Mm.
say, okay, what? This. It's another thing about poetry. I think there's a lesson in almost everything.
Yeah.
And so, what can I learn from this that I could take um, to wherever else? And
Yeah.
sometimes that requires being honest with themselves.
Mhm.
Yeah, I made a mistake. Own up to it. That's one thing I always tell my kids. When I would tell my kids, when I'd ask them a question, I would tell them 9 out of 10 times I know the answer,
Mhm.
and I'm testing. And so I'd ask them, "Hey, did this happen?" And I'd wait. Even the hesitations, I would pay attention to them. But one thing I tried to remain my judgment is this: I've made plenty of mistakes. Uh-oh. And guess what? You're going to make plenty of mistakes yourself. And as a father, I will never judge you on your mistakes because we all do students.
Yeah.
Some stuff is just it is out of our control. But I said what I will look to you for is how you respond to those
Yeah.
mistakes. So when you and it's not a matter of falling, it's wow, I really screwed this up. How do I make it better?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's but you can't really get to that point unless you sit a while like what happened and not be
Yeah.
afraid to find what you want.
Yeah. I think one thing I would add there for myself, at least, like when I think about the ability to sit in the rubble, it's so much easier to do that if you can count on yourself to be kind to yourself when you're in the rubble, because if you know that while you're sitting there in the rubble, you're going to be beating yourself up while sitting in the rubble. Of course, you're not going to sit in the rubble. That would be insane, right? So it's like those little steps we can take to learn to treat ourselves the way we'd treat a friend, um, or the way we try to treat a friend. I think add up, even if it's just little baby steps.
And how much of that do we carry from our past,
Yeah.
from our upbringing? Early on when we first got on, I talked about daddy issues. Yeah. And I own up to it. My father passed away in 2020.
Mhm.
It was to the family. It was a devastating time, especially for my mom. But it opened the door for me to start really being honest with my upbringing and writing about those uncomfortable moments that are a direct result of my father. And I could never do it while he was alive. And then when he passed away, something sort of opened up in me, and I started really exploring my childhood. And I also, it's what you know, I also started talking to my siblings, and things about memory really, because it's you may, and I forget where this comes from. I know it's a saying, but we don't necessarily remember what actually we remember how that moment made us feel.
Yeah.
And when my siblings and I are talking, um, we sort of remember the same event slightly different because it impacted us differently. But I sat with those uncomfortable moments about from my childhood, and started writing about it. But I was still uncomfortable releasing those into the world while my mom was still alive,
Right, right.
because she knew it. She when my dad passed away, I spent 6 weeks in Italy, um, during COVID. It was November of 2020. How I got into the country, I still don't know, but I was able to get in, made it to the funeral just a couple hours before it was meant to begin. And the day after, my mom was just sitting at the dining room table, and I was working remotely at the time, and we were 6 hours ahead. So I'd spend the morning with my mom, and then afternoons I get some work done. But those mornings I decided, because my mom started telling me these stories, and some of the stuff I just don't remember or don't
Mm.
recall ever hearing. And I went to their version of Best Buy and bought a little audio recorder. I sat down and said, "Mom, start talking. Tell me these stories. She goes, what do you want me to say? I said, just start talking. See where it goes. And once she started talking, she couldn't stop. But it was great for her. It was actually very good for me. And my mom knew she was there during those difficult moments in childhood. But she says, look, Sam, while I'm alive, just, because again, my dad was a pillar of the church up until the day he died.
Yeah.
I wrote a poem. It's on my Substack, called "The Shadow I Keep,"
Mm. It's a beautiful title.
and it talks about here I am. The family asked me to speak on behalf of the family at the funeral,
Mm.
and I'm like, holy crap! What do I say? Don't want to say it. Don't want to. I can't say the truth. And I can't tell you how many people came to me after the funeral saying, your father was such an awesome guy. Your father was a wonderful person. When I, you know, didn't have money to pay the gas bill, your father came and gave me the money. He never asked for it back. And so I struggled to reconcile those two versions of father. And it got to a point where I just had to accept reality. And it was actually my son, during a aha moment. We were talking, and my son goes, "Hey, Dad, you remember that time when you spanked me?" I'm like, "What? Wait, what?" I don't recall that moment. He goes, "Yeah." He says, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, no, I remember." He says, "But don't worry, Dad. I get it." He says,
Oh.
"I know where you.
Mm.
I also know where non-no comes from, because as stern and as difficult as my father was, based on the stories my mom told me, my grandfather was 10 times worse too. You start thinking about that generational, you know, that inheritance. It's not just physical things. It goes beyond that. It's mental. It's emotional. There's so much that we take with us from our families. And so going back to what you were saying about where, trying not to be so hard on ourselves. Sometimes we just carry that from
Of course. Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
childhood we had.
Yeah. The way
Goes a
I think
long way
about
to
that,
trust.
because no, but it's so true. I mean, I was lucky that, my mom is just an incredibly kind and gentle person, so I think I was lucky to have that voice in my head from a very young age. Even though I experienced other things too, I understood what it was like to have somebody talk to me kindly, consistently, and so I think it made it easier for me to find that than a lot of the time that a lot of people have with it. But a way that I think about it is, um, like a Russian nesting doll. Like,
Oh,
if you can't be kind to yourself sitting there in the rubble, can you be kind to that part of you that can't be kind to you? Like, can you go, "Oh, I get why this is hard for me. I see where that comes from. Okay. I'm not gonna be hard on myself for beating myself up." And if you can't be kind to that, can you go one layer out maybe? Like, just find that spot, and however many layers, like,
yeah.
the part where you can go, "I see where this came from. I can be soft to this little bit." Um, and I don't know if that works for everybody. That's kinda how I think about it. It's
No,
just
and I think that goes back to being honest about ourselves as well.
yeah.
Uh, and just acknowledging, yeah, some of us grew up in difficult times and difficult situations. But I also know no matter how bad I had it, I always had a roof over my head. We were relatively poor, but I always had a roof over my head, and my mom was able to scrap together some incredible meals out of nothing. Um, I know that there are those out there that have had even more difficult lives. And I always think about that when I see someone having a bad day.
Mhm.
I've just stopped judging.
Mm.
Yeah, you're being an ass. I don't know if I can say asshole. And
How
sometimes
dare you?
I know you're being an asshole, but I don't know what this person went through before this.
Right, right.
I
It
don't know what.
seems like people are always assholes for a reason. Not that it's, like, okay, but people don't just wake up having a perfect day and a perfect life and be like, "I'm gonna go make some people miserable." Like, it's not how it works, so
And sometimes it may take some bravery, but sometimes you just own up to the person in a kind word or just, I don't know,
yeah,
sometimes make a difference.
yeah. This has been so lovely, Sam. I part of me's like, "Oh, let's just keep talking forever," but I also wanna be mindful of time and energy and all of that, but is there anything that, um, you don't wanna leave here without saying? Like, just either connected to things we've talked about or not?
Well, I have on my whiteboard um, from Monty Python, always look on the bright side of life. And in parentheses, actually wrote whistling. And
Always look on.
on the bright side, I try to do it in an English accent, British accent. Never works out. But, you know, I always look at that when
Mm,
I'm having, today was a difficult day at work, and
mm,
I just wanted to walk away. And when I'm having those moments, I just look at that and
yeah,
whistle, and it's like, okay, Sam,
yeah.
you're not alone in this. It's not just
Mhm.
uh, you're not in a unique situation. So
Yeah,
what can you do um, to make it as there's escaping me, but how can you make it through this month?
mhm. That's beautiful.
Always
I
going to
love
face
that.
with adversity.
Yeah. And I love that held alongside so always look on the bright side of the life, and don't be afraid to sit in the rubble, but be kind to yourself while you're there, and you're never alone. And then I feel like, "Okay, well, that's it. If we all just take that, I think we're good." I think we got it figured out, Sam. Never mind, we don't need questions anymore. We sorted it.
I'm sure there's a poem and all that.
This has been such a treat. Thank you, and thank you so much to all of you who have joined here and
Yes.
for your
Oh,
comments and your hearts.
thank you to everyone. This is great.
Appreciate you all. Thank you, and see you all on Substack.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.